Hi, my name is Angel. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to a new reading vlog. In this reading vlog, I read 3 new sci-fi releases, so let's just go ahead and get right into it. It is time for the first update for our first book of this video. I started Baby X yesterday and I wanted to update you guys now because I have just made it into part 2. So I'm on page 110. So this is advertised like on the cover as a thriller, but it's definitely like a sci-fi thriller. Right now it feels much more sci-fi than anything. Like there's kind of a little bit of a mystery, but it doesn't feel like a crazy thriller right now. So this takes place in the near future where like natural pregnancy is no longer really a thing, and all of these clinics exist for people to have like their cells harvested. So it's basically like reproduction, what is it? Like, I don't know, within a lab. So like male couples or female couples or just female and male couples can create a baby. You guys know what I'm trying to say. I don't know why the words are not coming to me right now, but that's kind of like the whole thing going on. But now that has kind of opened up a way for people to steal like celebrity DNA from like water bottles or like a fork if they go out to a restaurant, that type of thing. If anybody can get their hands on this celebrity DNA, there is like this black market website that sells those cells to other people that they can then purchase for crazy amounts of money and then have a child with that celebrity's cells. So very, very interesting concept. The main story that we are following, we actually have 3 different perspectives. Our first perspective is Quinn. Quinn is a pregnant woman. She is a surrogate woman, so kind of her job is to get these embryos implanted into her for mainly for like gay couples that neither of them have a womb for this baby to be implanted in. So that's kind of what she does, and she is currently carrying a baby for this man who she thought she knew better than she really does, and she now has these suspicions that this baby is created with the cells from this really, really famous singer. The next point of view that we have is from Ember, who started this company to basically be like biosecurity for these celebrities. So basically anytime they go out in public, or this musician, he's going on a really long tour, she is with them and basically make sure that she picks up every trace of DNA that is left behind so that people can't come and steal the DNA cells. And then we have another point of view from Lily, who doesn't really seem to be connected to that story just yet, but Lily is a journalist, and her parents are older parents, so they're kind of called like what are they called? Senior parents or something, and they have made the decision that they want to have another child and go through this whole process of getting an embryo. And that's also very interesting because they are older, and they're basically saying like the reproduction age limits, I don't know the word, are no longer a thing in the society because they can implant this embryo into anybody regardless of how old you are. I feel like I just explained a lot. So those are the 3 point of views that we have. So really the main story that I feel like we're kind of in right now, and where the mystery is who this man is that took this famous musician's DNA, and Quinn, who is carrying that baby, and where all of that is gonna go and how that's gonna play out with this guy and his wife. And it's just very, very interesting. So I really, really love the concept. There were some things in the beginning, like the setup of it, that I was kind of questioning. I don't know if it really made that much sense. The writing for me is not anything particularly special as well. Like it's just kind of, I don't know how to explain it, but this type of writing that the characters just feel very flat. Like I don't feel connected to any of the characters. So I'm not really caring all that much about the plot or what really happens. It's just not, like, it's not bad writing, like outright bad. It's just not like that great and doesn't really leave you with a lot to think about or take away from it. But I am interested in the story. I'm just more interested in the concept than anything, especially, you know, just the whole idea of like celebrity worship and things. Like, it's really reminding me kind of Brave New World, just because of the way that they get to see all the feasible embryos and they essentially get to select which one they want, because they do a bunch of tests on them and they say like, oh, you know, baby A is like super intelligent or more predisposed to like being very artistic or whatever, and it also tell you like what different health conditions they have, which is another really fascinating thing, because they talked about stories where the parents would choose a baby that had, you know, a health condition, but they chose it because they were really smart or were going to be really successful or something. And just the morals, the ethics, I guess, of really being able to decide what type of person you're bringing into the world, and whether you think like emotional intelligence is better than like school intelligence, or like successfulness within life versus having like emotional capacity to feel empathy and things like that, is just very, very interesting. It also reminds me of the movie Antiviral, just the whole idea of like the celebrity worship and the celebrity culture within this future timeline, how people want to have babies with the celebrity DNA. I just happened to flip open to this cover and this book is $31. That's absolutely insane, first of all. Anyways, I'm not entirely sure my feelings on this. It compares itself to Black Mirror, which is interesting. I'm just really curious to see if we will get some crazy, like, thriller twists later on, and if anything will completely shock me. I feel like that would be really exciting, but right now, like, the story is just kind of average for me. Like I said, I don't feel connected to the characters, the writing is not my favorite, and I just don't know. Like, there are a lot of concepts I find interesting, but as a whole, it's not really that interesting to me. Hi, I'm just slightly irritated because I literally just stood here for 15 minutes and told you guys my final thoughts on this book. And then I went to look at it, and apparently my phone camera decided to go into like a weird slow-mo mode, and so the whole video has no audio and it's just in slow motion. So we love that. Anyways, let me see if I can try this again and try to bring up the same points that I just talked about, and hopefully I haven't forgotten anything that I wanted to say. But I finished Baby X. I think I'm gonna give it 3 stars. I can understand why it's marketed as a thriller. It definitely has thriller elements, but I would say it's more sci-fi. Obviously, it's a combination of both genres, but if I were to put it in one genre, I would put it in the sci-fi genre rather than thriller. Although there is some kind of thriller reveals, different twists, especially one bigger twist towards the end. It definitely feels like more sci-fi to me. Something I will say about the actual plot of the book is, as I told you guys, we have 3 different point of views. So the point of view of Quinn, who is the pregnant like surrogate, and Ember, who is that like biosecurity lady for this famous singer. Their stories I feel like are very, very obviously intertwined and connected throughout the entire book. But then we also have the third point of view from Lily, and I would say for like 98% of the book, it feels like an entirely different story. It felt like the author took like 2 different books and just mashed them together for some reason, and it isn't until the very, very end, like probably the last 5 pages, I don't know, that storyline comes into play with the other 2 point of views. And I'm not really a fan of when books do that, where they have like this entirely different story going and then at the very, very end it connects, especially if you are trying to have a book that has a thriller or a shocking like type of twist, because I feel like for the entirety you are just reading this other point of view that you know somehow is going to connect to the main storyline, and it kind of leaves you limited options for figuring out how that story is going to connect. And then I think it makes it easier to guess like the shocking twist. It just doesn't have that same effect because you know that it's got to connect somehow. As I previously mentioned as well, I wasn't a super big fan of just the writing itself, but one thing that I will say is if you are somebody who's like intimidated by sci-fi or you feel like it might be hard to understand, this book is definitely very straightforward. Everything is explained really, really well, so it's not difficult to grasp any of these sci-fi concepts that are happening. Now, speaking of sci-fi elements, that was definitely my favorite part of the book. Like the strongest part of the book for me were a lot of these different concepts, specifically when we have the ethics of the way that babies' embryos are selected in this world. So we have the selected kids, which are when the embryos are created, then the parents get to go through and they get to see all these statistics broken down from the genetic sequencing of all of these embryos. And it'll tell them, you know, whether they are more intelligent or more musical, artistic, their empathy levels, and just a whole bunch of different statistics on this baby. And it also gives like the health statistics and whether or not they will be predisposed to certain health conditions and like the percentage of likelihood that they will develop these different health conditions. So I thought that was really, really interesting, but then it brings in, like I said, the ethics debate of it, because then we still have children that are conceived in like the old-fashioned traditional way, like how things are done today, and those children are called unforeseen. And the parents of these unforeseen children are kind of looked down upon in society. They kind of have a bad rap because of the fact that when you have an unforeseen child and you have like a naturally occurring pregnancy, there is no way that you get to select that embryo, and you don't get to look at whether or not they may be more susceptible to certain health conditions. So they had like some cases where these unforeseen children would try to like sue their parents or just get the law involved because of the fact that their parents decided to have them unforeseen, and now they have to go through like living with this really hard health condition. But along that same path, we have the selected kids who are also kind of, some of them may have grown up and decided to take action against their parents for choosing them because maybe their parents chose them for their high intelligence score, or they were going to be a musical prodigy or something like that, and overlooked certain health conditions in order to have a child who would be really, really successful, but maybe later down the line would end up developing like Alzheimer's or something. So I thought that was really, really interesting, just the ethics of that all. And I just wish that we got more from like that side of things, more stories from the unforeseen children and the parents of unforeseen children. And also another thing is, I feel like a really popular sci-fi element, especially like in Black Mirror, definitely, where people in the future have like these contact lenses in their eyes, and that is how they like get onto the internet and communicate with other people with just these contacts in their eyes. You guys know what I'm talking about. So they talked about the history of that briefly in the story, and they were saying like it used to be optional and so many people were rallying against it and didn't want to lose their privacy and stuff like that, and then it was made like a law. It was required for everybody to get these things in their retina, I don't know, whatever they are. But I feel like regardless of it being forced to be, you know, like a law, I think there would still be a group of people in this future that would have still refused that, and maybe they're living off grid or something like that. And I feel like that would have been so interesting to learn about. So I don't know, I'm just like, I feel like the concept of this book and the concept of the world and the different elements in it are so fascinating, and I wish that the author had decided to take it a different way. I just don't know if I'm really a big fan of the plot, the actual plot of this book. I think the concept could have made something so much more fascinating than like following these people around and this like weird baby situation that's going on. So it's kind of a weird book for me to rate because I didn't like the plot, I didn't like the actual storyline, but I liked the future world that we are in, and I liked the different concepts and the history of those concepts, and I thought all of that was fascinating, but other than that, I didn't really enjoy that much of it. I'm giving it 3 stars, and I think that's all I have to say. So, whenever I decide what I'm going to read next, I will see you guys again. Book number 2 is Mal Goes to War by Edward Ashton. I started it today and I am just 55 pages into it, so I figured I would stop and tell you guys a little bit about it because it is a sci-fi book, so I feel like there's a lot of setup and things to be said even this early in the book. So Mal is a free AI, and the name Mal stands for malware, and he describes himself basically as sort of like a hermit crab, where his whole thing that he does for fun, not really because he has to, is just finds like abandoned bodies and then he like hijacks their mind. So the humans are at war with the like robot creatures. So it is the augmented federals and the humanists are the two sides of the war. Mal is not really a part of that. He's not really rooting for either side. He just kind of is keeping his eye on the war so that he can go out onto the battlefield basically and like hijack these bodies after these people get killed. And one day he does that. He kind of takes over the body of this recently killed augmented robot person, and he realizes that that person was with a child, and her name is Kaylee. And it's really interesting because I guess her whole thing, she's 18 years old, but she's still a child because she has this like gene code, this like modified gene code that extends her childhood. So she'll be in her childhood until she's like 30, and then she'll carry on and her whole lifespan will be like 300 years. I don't know, it's really interesting. But Mal takes over this body that was Kaylee's guardian, and he's like messing around in it, and then he's like, all right, peace, I'm gonna go. But he finds he can't leave because the humans in the war have destroyed access to the info space, and the info space, from what I understand, is like where Mal just kind of hangs out as a free AI. So when he's not inhabiting a body, he's just kind of floating around in info space, so he has no way to get back there, so he's just kind of stuck. He has to be inhabiting a body, so he stays in this body, and now he is tasked with watching over this girl. So they are journeying to find the next like connection tower. I don't know what it's necessarily called, but the next like area of connection so that he can get back into the info space. They also have this human soldier that they have taken as like a prisoner of war, but they're very casual about the whole thing. They're basically like, we're gonna take you as a prisoner, do you agree to come with us? And the guy's like, okay, like I can't really say anything else, and they're just like, okay, cool. And then it's like very casual. There's a lot of dry humor in this so far. Like the humor is definitely there, it's very prominent within the writing, but it is that very like dry, kind of bitter sarcasm type of humor. It's very interesting. I'm not sure how I feel about it so far because I feel like I'm not really connected to the characters yet. Normally I feel like it takes about 50 to 60 pages for a book to do its whole setup thing before you actually start to get connected and really care about what's going on. So I am curious to see where it goes from here. I don't really have any strong opinions about it so far, but obviously, like I said, there's so much setup that has happened, so I wanted to do my update now and tell you guys a little bit about what the book is about and what is going on. So that's all I have to say for now. I'm gonna go to bed and continue reading this tomorrow, so I'll let you guys know when I get further into it. I just got out of the shower. Clearly, you can tell. I'm going to fold some socks now. Not really fold socks. Pair up some socks, whatever. Anyways, I figured I would give you guys an update while I do that. I am now over halfway through. I'm on page 164 of Mal Goes to War, and I'm definitely enjoying the story more now that, like, I've gotten more into it. I still kind of feel the same way, where it feels like I'm not really fully connected to the characters, although I do enjoy the characters and I enjoy the group dynamics that they have going. I like the humor, like I already told you guys, and really the story at its core is about friendship and what it means to be human, obviously, as we are reading mainly following the perspective of this like free AI. So those themes are definitely very prominent, and I know it's definitely going to go deeper into that by the end of the story. I mean, we've already made some developments with Mal and the way that he thinks, and he knows that pretty much at any minute he could just like abandon these people and go find like another body to be in or find his way back to the info space, but he has not done that purposely because he found himself caring about these people that he's found himself with. One thing I will say about the book so far is that the plot seems kind of like lost. Like, I don't really know what the plot is. You know, we have like this group of people and they are traveling basically through this war zone and trying to avoid getting attacked by the humanists, and that's really like, I don't know what their end goal is. Obviously Mal, like from the beginning, his end goal was to get back to where he could access infospace and, you know, live his life, go check on his friends in the infospace world, his other AI friends. But I feel like, you know, obviously his direction is switching with that. That's no longer his main goal. So now I'm like, I don't really know what the plot of the book is, aside from just like following these people walking around through this war zone. So at no point do I know where it's going. Do I have any predictions where it's going? Absolutely not. But I'm just along for the ride and I'm mostly enjoying it. But that's really all I have to say about it. So I will see you guys later, maybe when I finish it, maybe another update before the end, but that's all I have to say. Finished the book, and I think I'm giving it 3.5 stars. I did enjoy it. Mal definitely grew on me a lot more as the book went on as a character. I thought he was really funny. I really liked his sense of humor, the like dry humor, the dark humor. It made me laugh out loud a couple of times, and it's just really interesting to have the main character be an AI. I really like in sci-fi books where there is some form of artificial intelligence that takes on the form of an actual character in the book. So this was really, really fun in that sense, and it was just really interesting to see like his thought process on certain things, especially as he is like puppeting certain people as the book goes on, and he kind of has to take like his knowledge from like studying other people or studying like media and saying like, okay, I'm in this situation, so based off of what I know about humans and how they interact with each other, this is how I should react to this situation. And sometimes it goes well and sometimes it does not go well, and it's really just funny and interesting to read about. So if you are a fan of like AI books or AI characters in sci-fi, I would definitely recommend this. It's definitely more character driven. Like I said, the plot is a little bit lost. Like, it's not a very, very strong plot, but the characters are what carry the story. Overall, I enjoyed it. It's not, I feel like, typically the type of sci-fi that I would pick up, but I'm really glad that I decided to give this a try because I did enjoy it. Overall, I would recommend it and I had a good time. And that's all for this one. So I'll see you guys when I start my next book. It is a new day and I am reading Floating Hotel now. I am, how far into this am I? About 83 pages. So far, I'm enjoying it. It's interesting. Basically, we have this hotel that is this like ship thing. I'm not even gonna try to pronounce what it's called, but it's basically like this fancy ass hotel. So far, each of the chapters that we've got have been of a different character on this hotel. So the first chapter we got was from Carl, who we meet him when he's very young. His home world, his home planet is not a very good place. There's a lot of things happening there. His just home situation in general is not very good. So he decides to sneak onto this hotel as it is like docked at this planet and picking up new guests. So he sneaks on. He eventually gets found out by the manager, and they're like, well, we can't just turn around and take you home because we're already so many like light years away. So you can either just like chill until like the next year when we circle past that planet again and we'll drop you off, or you can just stay here. So he decides to stay there, obviously working, and then we jump to 40 years later, and he is now the manager of this hotel and really in love with it. Absolutely obsessed. I think this is in the year 2774. I'm trying to find it, but I'm pretty sure. Yes. Okay, so it says it was October 2nd, 2774, and then the next page is the 40 years later. So I guess it's past 2774. Anyways, our next chapter is from a character whose name I can't pronounce, if you guys can see that. She is like the receptionist, the lady who works at the concierge desk. And then the last chapter that I just read was from Dunk. First of all, what a name. But he is the sous chef on this hotel ship thing. So they each have an interesting relationship to the hotel, and I feel like that's mainly what this book is going to be about. It definitely seems like it's going to be more character driven and about these characters and their relationships to this hotel. It feels like it's going to be one where this like hotel, this ship is kind of another character, and everybody else's story is just kind of revolving around this, which I think is super interesting. I also feel like this is going to be a story about the end of this hotel, because we have gotten some hints. Like when it first opened, it first started, it was so like luxurious and everything was high end and top quality and for the really wealthy and the really rich people, and it's still that way, but they were definitely hinting at like they're very understaffed. They used to have like people lining up to work like where they physically didn't have enough room to house everybody on this place that wanted to work for them. So now they are understaffed. All of their like luxury furniture, their like really high-end top quality furniture and decor and things are just being worn down from wear and tear over the years, how many guests that they've had, and just because they haven't replaced anything, things are breaking down a lot. So I feel like we're definitely going to be following these characters and the way that they relate to the hotel also, while we are kind of coming up on the demise, the fall of this hotel once it eventually closes, which has me really interested. So far, the point of view that I've liked the most was Carl. I think his story is really interesting, and he's definitely very like invested in this hotel, in this company, and making sure everything runs smoothly. Like pretty much the hotel is like his one true love. Like he doesn't have time for a relationship in his life because he is solely devoted to his work. So I think that's really interesting. It does say a little bit about that in the synopsis, and the synopsis leaves off with one final question: when is it time to let go? So far I'm intrigued. I think it's interesting. I like the writing style, and I think we are getting some good like depth and backstory to these different characters. There are certainly a lot of characters. There are some names that are mentioned that are kind of hard to keep track of, and I kind of have to figure out like, okay, who is actually integral to the main plot of the story and who can I kind of forget about, you know what I mean? Just been a lot of characters, but I'm really curious to see where it goes and all the different perspectives that we get and just the tale that will take place. So I'm going to put this down for the night, go to bed, and pick up reading it again tomorrow, and I'll let you guys know my further thoughts. I have read about 100 more pages in Floating Hotel since I last talked to you guys, so I figured it was time for an update. We have been introduced to a lot more characters and introduced to a lot more plot points and different things that are happening within this ship. There are definitely a lot of elements. I don't know where to start. Let's start with this. Last night, I meant to mention this and I totally forgot, but In between chapters, we have these little short excerpts, little articles that are from the Lamplighter Dispatches. And at first, I was like, I don't really know how these play in. It kind of felt like something that was there to just kind of give some political background to the world that we're in, and talks a lot about different wars and revolutions and things happening on different planets and in different systems. But now that has been a bigger part of the story as we are learning like what those things are. Basically, the Lamplighter is a person, an unknown person, and they write all these like little political articles or like news articles, but they write about things that like are not public knowledge. So they have like this emperor in this world, and the Lamplighter is writing all these things about the emperor that is not common knowledge, and is just basically like exposing these different things about the emperor, and like different things about the politics of this world. So on the ship, we have different people that are looking for this Lamplighter for different reasons. It's very interesting. We have spies. We have this convention that takes place in the hotel every year. It is called the Problem Solvers Conference. So we have been introduced to a character that is a part of that, and basically the conference this year, they gave everybody like a different code, and basically their mission is to solve this code before the conference ends. And I feel like that's obviously leading up to come into play somehow with this other like Lamplighter spy thing that's happening here. We haven't gotten too much more information about that or development with those codes. We also have this element with these like poems being distributed. Basically the hotel like utilizes this communication system. I'm sure we've probably seen it before in like movies or stuff, where it's basically like those tubes and you put like a note into the tube and it goes off to wherever. But these poems have been popping up in different tubes around the ship that are not signed by anybody. Nobody knows where these poems are coming from or who they're supposed to be for. So we have a character in here that is trying to decode these poems and figure out like what they mean, and he's been making some discoveries with that. There really is a lot of elements, but it's interesting because there is like a mystery at play here, but it doesn't seem like that mystery is like really the biggest plot point, if that makes sense. Like it's definitely like a part of the plot, but like I said last night, so much of the plot is just like about these characters and the way that they relate to this ship and the way that they relate to each other. And I think it's really interesting. I think this was a really good way to tell the story because things are unfolding slowly as we get introduced to these different characters and learn how they fit into this puzzle. Because I will admit it's a little bit disorienting starting a new chapter from a new perspective. You're like, who is this person? Why do we care? And as you read more of their chapter, you know, it becomes clear how they fit into all of it. So I think it's really interesting, and I really like the way that the story is set up and the way things are being told. The atmosphere as well, I think, is like spot on. Like I can definitely picture this hotel. I can definitely picture the setting that we're in, and I really, really like that. Overall, I'm having a good time, but I don't know if it's like, I don't think it's this book. I just feel like this month, I have not been reading like at the speed that I normally do, or just not reading as much as I normally do. I feel like it's taking me a really long time to get through this book, and it's nothing against this book. It's just like where I'm at right now. I don't think I'm going into a reading slump, but who knows? I'm just kind of taking my time. So I'm gonna read some more tonight before bed, but I may, if I don't finish it tonight, I might put it down and read something else and then come back to this in a couple of days and give my brain a little bit of a break from it. But I'm still enjoying it. Either way, when I do get further into the book, I will let you guys know. Actually, I probably won't see you until I finish it because I have officially less than 100 pages till the end. So right there, I'll probably just finish it and then come back with my final updates whenever that is. But that's all I have to say about it for now. I'm finished with Floating Hotel, and I am gonna give it 4 stars, but it's really weird because I don't really have much to say about it. I liked it. I would definitely recommend this book. I think this is one that could be very widely enjoyed by a lot of sci-fi fans. I liked the way that the story was told. I like that each chapter is like from a different character. I thought that was so fun and just such an interesting and sort of unique way to tell this story. I like the way that they all connect and we get like this little mystery going on in the background. I think the end tied everything up really well and honestly was the perfect ending for this book. I liked the writing, I liked the characters, I really loved the atmosphere and the hotel and the ship and everything that this book took place on. But other than that, I don't really have a lot to say. Would recommend it, did enjoy it. I feel like it's definitely different from like a sci-fi book that I would normally pick up, so I'm glad that I did pick it up because obviously it went well, but I think that may be why I'm having issues like trying to express my feelings towards it, because it's not a book that I feel like it's just different from the sci-fi that I typically read. But that is that for Floating Hotel, which brings us to the end of this video. So we'll do a little recap. I read 3 books in this video. I read Baby X, which I gave 3 stars. I read Mal Goes to War, which I gave 3.5 stars. And then Floating Hotel, which was 4 stars. So hopefully this video helped you guys out if you are thinking about picking up any of these new sci-fi releases. But with all of that being said, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.